Welcome to Proverbs 31 Creatives. My name is Brianna Coleman. I'm so excited for this new chapter in my walk with the Lord. My goal with this podcast is to encourage other women to grow their creativity, entrepreneurship, finances, life, health, and most importantly, grow closer to Jesus. I'll be having conversations with guests with anointed women in faith and learning right along with you. Are you ready to start your journey to become the creative Proverbs 31 woman you've always wanted to be? All right, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Proverbs 31 Creatives. I'm your host, Brianna Coleman. I hope you guys are having an amazing day so far. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Samantha Eck. She is a bookkeeper for creatives. She is the host of the Creative Minds Smart Money podcast. She's the founder of Firestorm Finance, and I'm so excited to talk to her today. Samantha, welcome to Proverbs 31 Creatives.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's going to be such a good conversation. When I saw your content on Threads, on Instagram, yes, again, shout out Instagram Threads. That's how we got connected. I am so just excited for this conversation today because I know for myself, and I know we kind of talked about this before, is the solopreneur has so many hats, and finances is such a huge aspect of business. That's why we're in business, is to make money, right?
Yeah.
It's to obviously, like, yes, we have a purpose that the Lord calls us to, but making money is biblical. Making money and stewarding money is biblical. So I really just wanted to talk to you today. So tell us a little bit about you and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Samantha Eck. I own the business Firestorm Finance, which has very strong biblical ties in the name, especially since fire is such a key imagery like in the Bible, and something about renewing and starting over, and a symbol that God is there as well. But I'm not just a bookkeeper, I'm also a fractional CFO. So that's some people think of that and they're like, whoa, like, what is that? So a CFO is a chief financial officer. Essentially, it's just me coming in and really giving you the background of your business and your numbers, and helping them to, like, helping you read the story that they're trying to tell you, because that is my kind of the whole thing that I surround myself with, is that your numbers are really a story, and they're just waiting to be read and waiting for you to actually understand what's going on with them. So, and I do that with a biblical perspective, because I think there's so many people out there who have shame and fear and anxiety around money. And I just want to come in with empathy and kindness and grace, and just really help you understand them in a way that makes sense to you and will help you feel confident enough to run your business.
Yeah, and that's so important. I know for me, I had the worst money mindset even before I was in business. I drove myself into 30,000 plus dollars in debt, in credit card debt, in loan debt, and that was not even including my car note. I thankfully bought my car when the interest rates were great, so I don't even really count that as like an expense and stuff, but my money mindset played such a huge aspect into how when I started my business. That was the foundational level that I had going into business, and that was something that I really had to work on. So pivoting a little bit, how did you get started in your business? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working corporately as a corporate staff accountant for a smaller business here in Texas. And I've been doing accounting for like years before that. Even when I first started, I was doing something called inventory control. I had no idea that was accounting, but it tied to accounting
Yeah.
eventually. But I just, I felt in my heart like there was this course that came up about bookkeeping, and I'm like, okay, well, I know accounting, like I know bookkeeping, it's in my background, but I'm like, I have no idea how to handle people. I don't know how to talk to people. Like, how do I even talk to someone about like offering what I want to offer? So I was looking at this course and I was like, hey, I know how to do the work. I was like, I just have no idea how to approach clients. And I started taking it, and I looked at my husband and I said, you know what? I said, there's no way I can build this if I'm also going to be working a full-time job. And we were at the point where we're big like Dave Ramsey people. So we were looking at, we were in baby step number 3 or 4. Like we were very close to getting out of debt and building an emergency fund. And I looked at him and I said, I know that we're trying to get out of this. And I said, I know this might put us back a step, but I
Mhm.
said, I really have faith that we can do this. So we had 2 months of expenses saved and we're like, hey, let's do it. So I quit my job and I started my business. And every single time I doubted, I was like, I feel like I need to go and get a full-time job again. I just can't do this. God would show up with a new client and it's like, here's a client for you. Here's a client for you. So that's when I really started to know and understand. And I was like, this is what I'm called to do. And all these feelings and thoughts that I was having, God was like, this is what I want you to do. And here's how I'm going to keep you doing it.
That's so awesome. I have been there myself, even within like the last couple months of pivoting from social media management to more of a content creator, photographer, videographer side of the creative side of my business. And there were so many times where I'm like, I had the Indeed app downloaded. I'm just like rapidly, applying to jobs. And I love that we're having this conversation right now because this is not talked about. That's why I love the platform of having a podcast of we are in the thick of it. We're in the thick of building a business right now. We're not the gurus that have been doing this for 10 plus years. We're the ones that are building a business with the Lord, like just truly trusting Him as God, what is my next step? And just getting on your face before God and like just asking Him and just waiting on His answers, being patient, but when He moves, you move. And that's why I love the story in Exodus when they were following the fire by night, cloud by day. And I love that you have your name fire in your name in your company. So how has the Lord ministered to you through finances, through your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, I mean, when I was growing up, money was something that was talked about, but it was never something that was like taught, if you know what I
Right.
mean. Like,
Yeah.
so it was like, oh, you need to save, you need
Right.
to make sure that you have money. But to me, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could save, but then I'm also like, well, I want to spend the money that's in my account. So it became this thing where, like, me and my husband spent money because we're like, well, we have a credit card, like, there's $8,000 on it. It's
Right.
money to spend. So as I kind of grew into this and started listening to finance podcasts and everything like that, it started to connect to me like that biblical stewardship part of it where we have to steward our money well. And
Yeah.
there has been times where me and my husband have taken steps back, like when I first started my business where we had to kind of go back and go a little bit back into debt. But then we work forward towards it again and we're like, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to start stewarding our money well. We're going to live within our means. We're going to move somewhere that we can afford that's not like bougie or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I really feel like God has just kind of been on my shoulder since day one, since starting this business, and said, okay, here's how I want you to teach people. And I think it's more about teaching and less about just
Yeah.
being like a bookkeeper. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can categorize your stuff and things like that, but it's more about me helping you understand and learn your business inside and out so that
Right.
you can grow it because you're the business owner. Like
Mhm.
I am a strategic partner. I'm there to help you grow,
Yeah.
but you are the business owner and you make the decision. So it's about teaching you what works best for you. And a lot of people are like, well, what if that person gets taught so well that they're just going to leave you? And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. If
Yeah.
that's what God is calling me to do and that person's like, I feel confident in my business enough that I don't need you anymore, then
Mhm.
that's okay. But most of the time, what I find is that they don't have the time to
Yeah.
go and look at their numbers on that deeper level and understand them. And that's why they need me
Absolutely.
to help them get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, like I was saying earlier, with the solopreneur aspect, it's like sometimes I feel like we are sold this, I don't want to say dream, but like
Yes.
kind of sorta of like, oh, quit your 9 to 5, do your entrepreneurship, start a business. You can work from your couch in your PJs and you go to a
Yes.
coffee shop at noon and like do all the things. Yes, you can to an extent, but you also have to remember you are accounting, you're marketing, you're the
Yeah.
decision maker, the director, the every decision. You wear so many hats. And so
Yes.
it's like we have sometimes I feel so stretched thin that I I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, like what do I need to prioritize right now? Because there's just so many moving parts. So having
Yes.
somebody like yourself, an expert in their corner that can, link arms with them and just run after that. I feel like strategic partners in that sense, it makes such it makes so much sense to have somebody like that in your corner. Since we're on this topic, what are some common mistakes that you see when people do try to do their books by themselves? What's the common pattern that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always tell people to just start where they are.
Yeah.
If you're going to use a spreadsheet, but I feel like a spreadsheet can only get you so far
Mm,
because eventually your business becomes complex. You
yeah.
start adding in all these things you want to add, contractors, things like that. And a spreadsheet can only take you so far. So I've seen businesses who are built on, millions of dollars a year who are still using a spreadsheet.
Oh my God.
And to kind of tie back to that, like just a short story, like I had a client who came to me who was a restaurant that they'd been using spreadsheets for years. And we found out they were missing $300,000 in deposits once we got them into
Oh,
QuickBooks.
oh my gosh. I mean, a restaurant alone to that capacity using spreadsheets,
Yes.
that's just the thought of that stresses me out. So
Yes.
I can only imagine that they are missing $300,000 in deposits. That's crazy. So how did that situation get handled? You just put them into QuickBooks?
Yeah, so I put them into QuickBooks. We noticed that it was missing, and we contacted back and forth with the provider for I think it was 5 weeks,
Oh
and
my,
eventually they did send the money. But it was crazy when it hit the bank account. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't
oh,
know what I'd do if that much was missing from my bank account.
exactly. I mean, you would think that's a pretty big chunk, but of course it just wasn't organized, so they just don't know.
Yes.
That's so crazy. So with working with you, you specialize in working with creatives. So what does that look like as far as I know with creatives, we have a million things going on in our brain where we're over here with this idea, we're over here with that idea. So what does that look like to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll definitely sit down and have a conversation, like the discovery call, and just talk through like what you're looking for, what you really need. And if we feel like we're a good fit, I'll send that proposal. When
Mhm.
we really start working together, that's where I always tell them, like, you need to give me at least 3 months because I really need to understand your books. I need to understand
Yeah.
your spending habits.
Right.
Because sometimes people do mix business and personal, and there's nothing like you should have it separated,
Yeah.
but I'm never going to shame you for that. The whole point of that is to show you the impact that that's making on your business when you do have the mix,
Right.
and then for you to visually see that and be like, okay, well, now I need to make that decision to change. But
Mhm.
then it's also about us working together and looking at things and saying, okay, last month you spent $300 on coffee, which was 15% of your revenue. Is that really what you want to be doing? And if you're like, yeah, I was like, I felt great last month. I was on fire. I got so many sales. I got so many new clients. I'd be like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Keep doing that if that's what works for you. But if you're like, what the heck, I spent 15% of my revenue
Yeah.
on coffee, that's when I want you to take that step back and we're going to talk about that and be like, okay, so how do we curb that? Like,
Mm,
what would that 15% have been better off going towards? Would it have been better off going towards marketing?
yeah.
Would it have been better off going towards a new tool? Maybe you've been eyeing up Honeybook because you're like, that will like up my game
Mm,
with client like retention and onboarding. Then that's where you want to take a look at that and say, okay, well, here's where we're going to pivot. So it's less looking at just your numbers on a baseline level and more strategically being like, what can I do to help your profits look better, but also what can I do to help make sure that you are paying yourself because you're a business owner and you deserve to get paid. And so many people forget about themselves
yep.
and you are important, especially as a solopreneur, because
Yes.
if you're going to hire like contractors or whatever, you need to make sure that you're paid first before you bring anybody else into the folds of your business.
Yeah, and that's so important. I know we talked about this before, how so my business bank account is in one area and my personal bank account is in one area. So my husband's like, so are you gonna, bring home a paycheck? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? All my business revenue's sitting there. Like there's my money. Like, what do we need? So, what does that look like for somebody to pay themselves? Because this is such a learning curve for a lot of us, especially I've done the W-2, I've done the 1099, now I'm in an LLC. So what does that look like for somebody to be able to pay themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a solopreneur or a single member LLC, you can just transfer money to yourself. And I know people are like, "What do you mean I can just transfer?" You can transfer as much money as you want. Like if you were like, I had $10,000 left over after all my expenses, you could take all of that if you want. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily the smartest thing, but
Right.
the way I always tell my clients is to start setting it up almost like a paycheck.
Mm,
And if you're like, okay, I want to get paid monthly, set a date every month that you're like, okay, this is when I'm paying myself. For example, like all my client payments come in on the first, and I
mhm.
usually pay myself by like the third or the fourth whenever that money hits the bank. I have clients who pay themselves every second Friday or the first and the 15th of the month just to get into that consistency and still feel like you are getting a paycheck. So it feels a little bit less like you're just taking whatever's left and
Right.
you're being more intentional with giving yourself funds.
Makes sense. So, as far as, do you recommend certain percentages? Like, okay, let's do 10% of the revenue is my paycheck, and then 15 goes to marketing, 20 goes to, like, do you recommend percentages like that, or how do you do that?
Yeah. So I actually like to work backwards. And I think a lot of people, talk about profit first and things like that, but I like to work backwards from your salary. So
Okay.
really if you're like, okay, you have a personal budget and let's say, your husband brings in $2,000 and you're like, I need $3,000 to make sure that we are taken care of for the month. So you now know that you need $3,000 from your business. So that's where we're going to work backwards and say, okay, $3,000 is what I need to bring in. I need $2,000 for expenses
Okay.
and I want to have another $1,000 for like profit, just so I can reinvest it in my business at some point or something like that. So you
Gotcha.
know now that you need to make $6,000 a month. So now your goal is to get to that point. Now, obviously, when you're first starting out, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get to $6,000 a month. Maybe you are. Maybe you're a rock star and you're I hit it. But most of the time, we're not going to get there, and that's okay. But the important thing is to understand that, okay, I need to, and you can even use that as a percentage basis. If you're saying, okay, I need to make $6,000, 3,000 is 50% of that. I need to pay myself at least 50% of what I'm making.
Yeah.
If that helps you out, but then at least you can start analyzing that and understanding what you want to bring in. But you have to start and know what you need to bring in personally. And a lot of people are like, well, lifestyle or my personal side of things isn't really connected to my business. But when we're solopreneurs or single member LLCs, it's so closely connected to our business.
So closely connected.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's I feel like when somebody is living out of their means, especially, and this is something that I had to learn the hard way, is when somebody is living out of their means, the stress of your personal life affects your business. Have you ever had a client, obviously don't name any names, but have you ever had a client where in this instance, like you kind of had to look at them and like, okay, let's reel it in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there's a few clients I've definitely had to do that with and kind of just have that tough conversation with.
Hmm.
There's also clients who are so closely tied with their personal life that they're overreaching
Mm,
that and they don't make that necessary change where I've had to say, like we're just not working well together. And
yeah,
I think that's not to say like I don't want to work with everybody. I want to work
right,
with as many people as I can, but I
sure.
think that each person is so unique that they need a certain person to connect with them on that level.
Yeah, of
Th-
course.
And that's why there's so many different bookkeepers out there because each bookkeeper is going to speak to someone a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I feel like that's how, even with our testimony, that's kind of how, like, my testimony might not apply to somebody else
Yeah.
because the way that the Lord speaks to us is different with everybody. So that's why there's so many different restaurants. Like, if I drive by a restaurant and say it's Italian restaurant, but tonight I want Mexican, the Italian chef in the back is not going to be crying because I chose Mexican because there's
Yeah.
somebody else coming to the Italian restaurant. So there's so many different people for so many different in different industries and niches and things like that.
Yes.
So that's what's cool about working with creatives and all that kind of fun stuff. Um, when somebody is, you made a really good point there. When somebody is brand new in their business, like say somebody just started a business and they're 6 months in, what are some foundational things that you would have them start setting up? Maybe they're not ready for a bookkeeper right now, but
Yeah.
they are looking maybe down the road to when they grow their business, they're going to be hiring somebody. But those foundational couple months, what would you recommend for somebody in that time frame?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can't afford to get into an accounting software, like I said, starting with a spreadsheet isn't bad, but you need to start tracking things for sure.
Yeah.
Track your income, track your expenses, understand what's coming in and out of your business,
Hmm.
and really take a look at that. And I like to call it a money date. Like, do it every month. Pick a Friday, put it on your calendar, make it non negotiable. Because a
Right.
lot of people would do it and be like, oh, okay, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. No, make it a non negotiable,
Hmm.
similar to like a doctor's appointment or something like that. Sit down, look at
Yeah.
it, put on a fun movie, put on some music, put on something,
Yeah.
look at your numbers with intention
Hmm.
and say, okay, like what's going on in my business? Especially as someone who doesn't have a bookkeeper yet, because I always tell my clients this, like, yes, I'm your bookkeeper. I'm going to be taking things over, but you need to have as much knowledge about what's going on in your business as I do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't care enough about your business, then what I'm doing isn't going to have an impact for you.
Yeah.
Because you have to care enough to be like, oh my gosh, like, I spent that 15% on coffee. Like, what the heck?
Hmm.
Like, but if you don't care about that enough, then it's not going to kind of create that impact that you really need to make those necessary changes to get
Yeah.
your business to where you want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I noticed when I started tracking my money, seeing where things are going, and then I corresponded with tracking my time and seeing where that was
Yes.
going. When I started tracking both of those, that's when my business took off. That's when I started really just focusing on, okay, what do I need to be doing right now as and not wasting my time, not wasting my money on pointless subscriptions that I was not using.
Yeah.
And those can sneak up on you really quickly is the
Yes.
subscriptions. If I can and try to save money, I try to do like the yearly subscription.
Yeah.
But then when that year goes by and I haven't used that subscription, I'm like, oh no. And so you have to make sure you cancel it and all the things. So just tracking where your money is going is obviously so important. So that's how we grow. That's how we learn.
Yes.
And when it comes to overcoming scarcity mindset in business, in say somebody has a bad money mindset and they were listening, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I mean, I think the bad with money stigma is just that's exactly what it is. It's a stigma.
Yeah.
Like you're not bad with money. I think it's just a matter that no one has ever really taught us how to understand it in a way that makes sense to you.
Right.
So I really think the way that we get over that is by looking at our spending habits and like understanding them on that deeper level. So really, like I said, doing that money date and looking at things and being like, oh my gosh, like I spent $300 on coffee, and realizing that and accepting it and not judging yourself for it and being like, okay. And you know what? Like same thing with personal and business.
Yeah.
Looking at that and saying, okay, last month, I took $300 from my business and I went shopping at Target, like
Mhm.
through my business account. And it's not, again, it's not to judge or shame yourself. It's to more look at that and be like, okay, I see that. I understand it. I'm not going to do it moving forward. And
Right.
that's how you kind of like start to overcome that mindset, because when you're first looking at it, you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, how shameful of me that I just spent that money." But it's not, because we all make mistakes. It's a matter of looking at it and growing from it and learning from it
Yeah.
and then doing that repeatedly.
Hmm. Yeah, I know when I was first, and I know you mentioned Dave Ramsey. My mom, when I was younger, she taught Dave Ramsey classes at the library and things like that. So she is a loan officer, mortgage broker kind of deal. And so when I was in my large amount of debt, we sat down and I wrote down how much I owed on every single
Yes.
credit card. I wrote down how much I owed on every single line of credit, personal loan, whatever. Because at one point, this is so bad, and you're probably gonna cringe. I took out a personal loan to consolidate my credit cards because I had like, I don't know, $7,000 worth on credit cards, maxed out. And then I took out a personal loan to try to consolidate everything because they were just like little bits, little credit cards here and there. And then once those credit cards were paid off, racked them up again. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, okay, this cycle, I looked around and I'm like, okay, I'm in the same exact place that I was 6 months to a year ago. Like nothing is changing because
Yes.
my mindset has not changed. And that is a whole another, I feel like a whole another episode because the root of that is something that you need to get to. But like you said, just facing it head on at first, it's like
Yes.
it hurts. It's like
Yes.
it you feel like you are getting yourself out of a hole. But when you can see it and you can picture it, that is it helped me out so much. Have you done the snowball, the debt snowball with your husband and stuff?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And we're still working on that, like I said,
Right.
because we when I left my corporate job, we did go backwards a bit, and
Hmm.
we're working on it, but I think it has to get to that point where you're sick and tired of it. Like
Yeah.
you're looking at everything and you're saying, why is my money going towards someone else?
Yeah.
And that's what, like, when we met, me and my husband were so close when I first started my business, that's what we looked at and we said, we want to do stuff. Like we want to get a house. We want to go to Korea. We want to see and do all these exciting things.
Right.
And we can't because our money is going elsewhere. And
Yeah.
it took us looking at everything and looking at our budget, looking at what's coming in and out of our accounts and
Hmm.
saying, okay, last month we spent $200 eating out and like seeing the impact of that and being like, what the heck? Like, what
Yeah.
were we thinking?
Hmm.
Like, we could have used that $200 to pay off debt. So
100%.
you have to see it. You have to look at it. And yes, you're going to feel a little bit ashamed of yourself because you're going to be, oh my gosh, but it's not about shaming yourself. It's
Right.
about learning from it and growing from it.
Yep. 100%. I know I felt so ashamed. I know I was crying. I had a breakdown. I'm like,
Yes.
why did I even allow myself to try to make these decisions? But $15 decision here, $100 decision here, $50 decision here, $20 decision here. They add up. It's like putting change in a bucket or water droplet in a bucket. And then eventually that bucket is overflowing. And that's when you're $20,000 in credit card debt. And so just making those wise decisions of let's look at it, let's track it, let's make sure that our we are stewarding our money correctly. And so to kind of wrap it up a little bit, so our theme this month is productivity and creativity. So I thought it
Yes.
was a great time for you to come on and talk to the creatives and all the kind of things. So what is your favorite productivity hack that you either use on a daily basis or you use in your business? What is something that you do that's a productivity hack?
Yeah, absolutely. So I theme my days.
Mm,
So I love to say, like today, for example, is my CEO day. So
okay.
it's things that I do that help grow my business. So looking at metrics, understanding how the past week went, getting on podcast calls, getting on coffee chats. Also, like it's the day I book like all my doctor's appointments, things like
Yeah.
that, so that I have that clarity. And then like tomorrow is my client work day. So I'm zero focused in on just doing client work. I don't want anything else distracting me. I put on an audiobook. I close down all my tabs with social media and I just focus on client work. And I find that this helps me get into the mindset of being like, okay, today this is my focus.
Right.
So everything else just gets kind of pushed to the side. So, I don't look at my email every second of every day. I wait until
Yep.
the end of the day. But I think theming your days and just like that seems like silly, especially too, because you're like, well, what if I want to have client calls every day of the week? You know what? I have discovery calls open every day of the week. But most of the time, I find that when like I limit them to two blocks, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then 2 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Right.
Nobody's ever complained about that because you need to run your business in the way that you see fit and what's going to make you most productive.
Sure.
So I don't know. I just find that it helps me to think really clearly. And then I don't dread those client calls when they're on a specific day instead of them being sprinkled throughout the entire week.
Yeah, yeah, because there's nothing more, it's not frustrating, but like, I don't know another word for it when you were constant, like your phone is constantly blowing up with phone
Yes.
calls, or you're constantly, like your emails going off and you have to constantly be responding to emails. And then it's like, then you look at your day and it's like, I feel like I got nothing done.
Yes.
So theming, that's great information. With my business pivot right now, I'm trying to restructure everything. And so I'm stealing that with the business, the theme days. And then number a second part to that question is how do you use your creativity to honor the Lord?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually do that with, you know, like content and things like that, but
Yeah.
also in this space that I'm doing, like I have the space that I did here, I made it very warm and engaging because it just helps me to like think properly and get that creativity brewing properly. But a
Right.
lot of it is in content. Like the content I generate comes back to that mindset of what
Mhm.
am I doing it for? Who am I doing it for? And I'm
Yeah,
doing it, yeah, I'm doing it for my family so that I can make money. But at the core of it, I'm doing it because it's what I've been called to do.
absolutely.
And I want that creativity to shine through what I do. And like, that's why I do my podcast. So I do it. So because I've always felt like the way that the Lord speaks through me to shine on other people is through like the light that I like give off through
Yes.
my content and my attitude and everything like that.
Yes, I mean that's why I had to have you on because your content is just like so infectious. Like I just love to look at it. Your branding is phenomenal. Y'all, if you guys need any help with branding, go look at Samantha's Instagram, which we will give all of her information towards the end. But it is phenomenal. Like your branding, everything is just like perfectly in line. I'm like, I love it. And one thing I heard recently is even if you are not directly talking about the Lord in a
Yes.
post, having the fruits of the spirit in your content, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, having that in your content, I feel like can absolutely just complete a brand, finalize a brand, and just make
Yes.
it love and all the things. So, and then our wrap up questions. What is your favorite book in the Bible?
Yes. My favorite one is actually Ruth.
Oh, okay. Nobody has said that yet. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I love Ruth.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I feel the impact of her because with her, with her following her mother-in-law and being like,
yes.
wherever you go, I go, your people are my people.
Yep.
I've always felt that impact and been like, that's such a powerful message that
So good.
resonates with me.
Yes. And I actually heard a sermon. It's funny you say Ruth because I heard a sermon recently about Orpah, how she kissed her mother-in-law goodbye and like that kiss goodbye of saying goodbye to things that are either no longer serving us or that the Lord is we're parting ways with or like it
Yes.
was so powerful. I'll have to send that to you because it was such a we always hear about Ruth, we never hear about Orpah. So it was such a good sermon. And then last question, what is your favorite book that is not in the Bible?
What is my favorite book that's not in the Bible? And it
That
could be like
helps you.
fictional or like
Yeah, that's
nonfiction.
either helped you like in business, in money mindset, in
Yes.
your walk with the Lord, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely think for me, like really it's a tie between two of them. One of them is Atomic Habits.
Oh, very good.
I feel like that's like impacted my life a lot. And
Mhm.
then obviously the second one is the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey because that's just helped me wrap my head around money. And
Yeah,
it's not necessarily that you have to follow the philosophies that Dave Ramsey has, especially if you're someone who like, you use credit cards in a different way, but it's more just like to understand the impact of money and the
yeah.
impact it has on your life and how it kind of ties to your faith as well.
Right. My husband and I, we definitely we do the debt snowball. Like I said, the debt snowball that he teaches has saved me from
Yes.
thousands of dollars worth of debt. I don't remember if he teaches it, do interest rates first or do the low balances first.
It's low balances. Yeah.
Low balances. Okay, yeah. So that's what I did as well. So I'm glad I got that because I've heard some people do it with the higher interest rates. Because
Yes.
sometimes with the higher interest rates, yes, you are saving money in the long run, but sometimes those higher interest rates have higher balances. And so you don't
Yes.
reap the rewards of doing. Before we wrap up, can you explain the debt snowball just so people can kind of understand what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's where you list out your debts from lowest to highest. Doesn't matter about interest or anything like that. And then you pay them off based on lowest to highest. And the whole point of it is momentum. It's
Yes.
because when you pay off, a $200 credit card, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I paid off a debt. And then you pay off $1,000 credit card. It's debt. And it's about once you get to that point where you're so close to getting out of debt, you're going to be so inspired and so like fired up that you're going to want to pay it off faster.
Yeah, I would go do Uber Eats and Instacart and I would get a little bit of extra money because at that time I was living paycheck to paycheck when I was paying all this off. I would get that extra, say $200 from say Uber Eats, Instacart, and I would put it toward my lowest balance debt. And so
Yes.
from there, I would take that money that I was paying off plus the what's it called? The required payment. I can't remember what that's called.
The
I
minimum, yeah.
take minimum. So I take the minimum payment plus that 250, pay off my lowest balance, and then I just keep paying that amount and amount and amount, and then obviously it just grew and the momentum was great, and now I'm 20,000. I paid off all that debt. So thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
Very grateful. So Samantha, where can everybody find you? Give us all your info.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram and Threads. So
Mhm.
it's at Firestorm Finance on all those places. You can actually find me as Samantha Eck on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me, send me a connection request. I'm totally down for that. I also do a podcast that mainly focuses on financial aspects. It also does other aspects. So if you're someone who like really needs assistance, you're new, you're like, I just need some guidance on financial things, that's definitely the podcast you want to listen to because it'll help you
Yes.
just to get a grasp of that.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's my newsletter as well. So if you're, again, you want more tips, you want more resources, because for me, education is so valuable.
Mhm.
And again, like I said, we have never been taught this stuff. So I want to share as much education as I can.
Yeah.
And those are great resources for you to connect with me, but also learn more about finances and help you to grow your business.
Yes. And if anybody wants to work with you, how do they inquire? Do they email? What's the best way to do that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you just hit me up on my website, firestormfinance.com. There's a form on there. You just fill it out, and then if I feel like we're a really good fit, and I'm like, yes, you're totally ready for a bookkeeper,
Yeah.
100%. I'll send you a discovery call link, and we can get on there. If I feel like you're not ready for a bookkeeper, I'm going to be 100% upfront with you and be like, hey, like, let's keep in touch, but you don't need me right now. Here's what you can do to kind of like work on your business until you get to that point.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, guys. I hope you found this so valuable. And Samantha is such a great resource. Go follow her. Go, if you need a bookkeeper, go work with her. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much again, Samantha. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys. I hope this episode blessed you today. If it did, please rate and review the show. It helps grow the podcast to reach more Proverbs 31 creatives just like you. Don't forget to follow the show so you'll automatically be notified when the next episode drops. I'll be praying for you. See you next week.